Hi, everyone. Everyone is having the right conversations. I'm just going to ask, as you're talking about these actors, please write them down on the sticky notes. We'll eventually put them on these big flip charts across the room, delineating kind of the actors we're hearing most about, so state actors, private sector actors, international organizations and donors and CSOs and others. But one thing I do want to push you and challenge you to do is, instead of the state or the government, maybe what department specifically, who is more visible in terms of the private sector? What part of the private sector are we talking about? Are there specific organizations? So as you're thinking a bit more about beyond that big title, please write those down on sticky notes. And I promise you we will do something with them next. So yeah, continue having that dialogue and conversation. But as that's going on, please write down those actors that you're talking about. And yeah, continue. Thank you. And when you're writing on the sticky notes, like one actor per, I need to be clear about this, sorry. One actor per sticky note, and if you want to and can, write the country that you're talking about at the top corner of that sticky note. So one actor per sticky note. No, but we need individual actors on, so like the media or MTN or is on one of these.
Well, you know that your directive came after, so
I know. That's okay. New directive, that's fine. There's no punishment. You are fine. Moving on, everyone individually write the powerful actors in your country and write your country on top. So everyone take a few sticky notes, if that makes sense.
well,
A pen.
let's finish with it.
Yeah, please continue talking, and then just pass. I'm just going to give you this and pass this around. They need to get through this first. Yeah. I've also just been writing down actors of power, so they haven't even put down excluded people. But I'll just say, okay. So it's private sector actors, state actors.
Civil society, and there's another in case somebody insists that doesn't fit.
Okay, others, and then international.
Funders, multilaterals.
Okay, funders and multilateral. All right, everyone. Well, I'm just giving you a 2-minute warning of we will continue the discussion, but I do want people to start getting up and putting their sticky notes on the big white papers. They are divided according to actor. So you have the state actor over on your right side of the room, the private sector actor where I am, others and international funders and multilaterals in the back, and then on the other side of the corner, there is civil society. So something you will notice on these actor boards is we have degrees of high influence and low influence, and those who are excluded. So for example, in the private sector actors, you could talk about, like I've heard, telecommunications being super influential. That would be in the high influence, but maybe like the smaller fintechs would be low influence, but still have some power. But like we heard from CIPIT and our Nubian Rights Forum, there are those who are excluded from that space. Sorry. International at the back. So place them as they fit across in terms of power, how much influence they have in their specific actor space, and then maybe those who are excluded and you would like to mention them as well. You can start thinking about that and adding them on at the back. So if you haven't already, start moving around, placing those sticky notes, maybe seeing what other people have put down.
chart, so far no civil society organizations have any influence of any kind anywhere in the country. Maybe just thinking about civil society as well.
Yeah, think about, and also just, you know, power is on a spectrum of high power, middle power, lower power, and then excluded. So thinking about different levels of influence and power. All right. And in just a minute, we're going to have different people report on different actors to kind of feed back into the group what has been emerging, what's interesting. So when everyone has put up their sticky notes, raise your hand. Or if you have yet to put up your sticky note, raise your hand. I promise if you engage with me, this will be faster and we can all go to lunch. All right, anyone need to stick any more sticky notes up? Raise your hand. No? We're good? All right, so we are gonna go ahead and start with our most populated sheet, which is our state actors.
So from this side, what I've seen is like it seems the state actors, the government, is the one which is mostly involved, the main actor basically. So starting from Congo, we also have Benin. Let me see, Nigeria, Egypt, Ministry of Interior, Zimbabwe. Someone said, I don't know who did Zimbabwe, obscure, but it's definitely the government. We also have Namibia. Okay, Namibia I'm seeing, I think it seems like the private sector, because I'm seeing telecom, the telecom sector. Oh, it's owned by the government, yeah. So Namibia, Kenya, yeah. So Kenya, it's the Ministry of Interior. We also have the National Registration Bureau, which are also part of the government. So mainly, the government is also a key component here. Can't see another one. Malawi, the Ministry of Information and Digitalization. Yeah. So from all this, I think the state is the highest, has the highest influence, and it's the core component of DPI. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. And I think from there, we're going to go on to our next most populated. So if Annette, you can, I'll give you my microphone.
I think from the private sector actors, the telcos take the lead, yeah, as some of the key players in decision making around digital ID and DPI, and some other things that are standing out are financial institutions like the World Bank, yeah, and tech developers. So that is the main thing that is standing out as the most influential in terms of decision making. And the least influential, or maybe the low influence, yeah, I've just seen some, it's still part of the telcos, but there are a few mentions of the UNDP, yeah, and the Russia digital agents, or who are still have stake in decision making when it comes to telcos. And then in terms of exclusion, there are no, it seems there are no private sectors that have been excluded in the decision making. I don't know if that is right, but yeah, we can find out if there are no private sectors that have been excluded in the decision making. But that is it. That's the feedback.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Annette. And our third most populated, so Zana's going to take both the other and the international and multilateral donors.
Okay, for this one speaks about the funders and the multilateral. So basically, World Bank has the lead because it has like 5 votes from everyone. And we have IMF, and we also have Huawei, which is China, also has like their most high influential. And also another one, it's EU, also it's among the high influential, but they don't have low influential, and also we don't have any funders who are excluded. So for these other ones, for the people who are who have high influence, we have the banking sectors, and we also have, it's also telecommunication companies, which is such as in Namibia we have MTC, and we also have, I don't know it's from which country, Bon, DBN, and the low influence, we have the rebels. So we don't have anyone who is excluded.
And then finally, our unfortunately least populated chart. Jimmy?
Thank you. I think this is civil society organizations, but I think there are overlaps with what has been read out there. So what stands out, apart from names of NGOs from Namibia, Malawi, I think I can't really tell because it's been written in abbreviations. Namibia Media Trust, I think, NTM, so many others. But what stands out here basically is a list of those that have been excluded. And there's Ghana, 2 sticker notes from Ghana. So there's end users and citizens, media and civil society organizations. So according to this, the civil society organizations are not high influence here, but they are excluded. So I think those overlaps between, I think there's others there and civil society has meant this side doesn't have a lot of stickers. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jimmy. So something interesting as well in all of this, and something I heard in one of the groups, was the idea of difficulty of visibility of who actually is driving the agenda. So for example, when we do talk about state actors, understanding really where this agenda is coming from, or when we're talking about donors, really why this is happening and who specifically why. And I think there's been conversation in the different groups about motivations and how this agenda is being driven and in what role each of these actors play, which has been really interesting, but also how there are such common threads across, but also some disagreements of who is excluded and who is powerful. For example, I heard in one group somebody saying that the media is quite influential, whereas someone else had mentioned that they are actually the excluded group. So perceptions of and understandings of where that power lies and what's driving an agenda that has such serious implications for citizens. Something that is, and probably we didn't talk about much because of the instruction, are those who are excluded from the conversations and actually should have power and presence in shaping this agenda. So I'm not going to ask you to talk about it in groups, but if you can write on sticky notes those excluded groups in each of your countries, depending on, regardless of actors, so state actors, again, private, CSOs, others, and international funders, those who should be and ought to be part of this agenda, influencing it, but who are not and are excluded from it. So just we're going to take another 5 minutes, write those on sticky notes, post them up, go for it, and then we'll end with some closing remarks. If anyone needs more sticky notes, please raise your hands. So go ahead and start posting them up on those flip charts. Excluded groups. That should, yeah, excluded groups, and then just put them where they belong. Yeah. Excluded groups that should be a part of the conversation. Remember, excluded actors that should be part of the conversations, and then go ahead and post those on the boards. Or post them before they leave.
So once it gets onto a flip chart somewhere, we can make.
Yeah, as long as it gets on the excluded part of a flip chart somewhere, we can make sense of it. So go ahead and start posting those. And while this is happening, I just want to see if there's any questions or comments or reflections from the groups, from individuals who have questions or comments, something interesting that's come out that they want to kind of address the room, and I can give a microphone around. Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, I don't know if I will distract people still writing, so is it okay to speak now, or we should wait? Yeah. Is a question maybe for Tony. Sorry to ask you directly because, and my question related to what I just read yesterday on digital ID about the UK, and we know that you are from the UK. And yesterday, I just noticed that the government of the UK then will now be imposing what they call the mandatory digital ID. And we always used to think about this topic in a very negative way. It's not good because of that protection, access, all of this. And when it comes to Africa, we always talk about in that sense. But we are also seeing that other governments, like the UK, let's say, a democratic government, you are also imposing, or you will be imposing this kind of situation for your citizens in the UK. So how do you see, is it a change for positive way, or you see that it's very negative as we've been seeing in other contexts like Africa, for example, Mozambique and other countries?
Thank you. I'm going to go for more comments, and then we'll come to you, Tony.
I just wanted to ask the panel if there are any tips that they can share with us, particularly regarding how to include marginalized groups into this discussion, particularly those, I was just speaking with my colleague here from Zambia, those living in the village, in the rural areas, who normally, traditionally are excluded from these kind of conversations. How do we really involve them, particularly in contexts where political repression is the order of the day, where the civil society is seen as the enemy of the state, or how can we engage people who normally do not, who are not always easy to get access to? Do you have any tips from your work that that can help us?
Building off tips, are there any examples of organizations, civil society, either the panel or in the room, who have effectively engaged with entities like the World Bank or UNDP to ensure that rights-based or civil society voices are heard in these projects? I think that there's a lot of money flowing and not a lot of transparency or thought given to what exactly makes the most sense in all of these different contexts.
Thank you very much, both of you. I'll have Tony go ahead. We'll come back to you. Tony, go ahead and answer, and then.
Thank you. So, thanks, Zanzana, for your question, because it really brings us back to why we wanted to have this discussion in the first place. As you rightly say, in the UK right now, the government is trying to impose compulsory biometric digital ID on citizens in a country where we've never had any kind of national ID that we have to carry around with us. And the reason that we don't is because every time the government suggests it, citizens demonstrate and protest and advocate for why they don't want to have digital ID. So in those contexts where civil society is strong, where the judiciary is relatively independent, where the media is relatively independent, it has been possible to push back and say, this isn't a thing that we choose. And so in a way, that's where the question for this session came from. Suddenly, we're seeing in every single country a really big push for, in the first place, biometric digital ID, and then the extension of that to cash payments, and then the extension of that to data exchanges and your SIM card and your bank account and everything else. And citizens didn't ask for these changes. Citizens nowhere asked for biometric digital ID, and citizens nowhere asked for digital public infrastructure. And so we're asking you the question, where does this pressure come from? If we tell our governments again and again we don't want to be more surveilled or more repressed to have to carry this documentation, if it's not our interests that our representatives in Parliament are serving, then whose interest is it? And you're telling us that these are some of the actors that are influential in your country. I'm sure in my country it's the same actors. I'm sure in the background it's the World Bank and the IMF putting pressure on parliamentarians to keep on trying to foist this upon us. But those discussions happen behind closed doors. There's no transparency about who has power and influence to drive and shape these debates. So we're grateful to be having this conversation with you.
I will just comment briefly on the question about tips about how to engage with these actors who are driving it forward. And I would say that asking the question of power and understanding the why behind it is important, because it also puts you in contact with who is engaging with those actors in different ways. So I work in research, but aside from this digital public infrastructure project, I work on tax, which is not a very non-sexy topic, but one that is funded in this global climate and is highly collaborative with government, which means we have this relationship of trust and access to government and these global players funding this. So it's almost like opening eyes to different avenues in which you can partner with other academic actors or civil society actors maybe not working on the thing that you are working on in terms of digital rights, but have a pathway. Because when we talk about things like data exchange and digital public infrastructure, we are talking about a massive system that cuts across. So like I said, tax, it is being implemented, and those conversations are very much happening in that field, especially during an era of aid cuts, of global funding cuts, where revenue mobilization is happening. So that's an example of thinking about power, interests, and other actors and other avenues which inevitably have intersections for influence, power, and understanding and partnerships.
Just to add on tips on what we do as an organization at Nubian Rights Forum. So basically we have community-based paralegals. So for the community-based paralegal, they come from the community themselves, the marginalized community. So we teach them the law, on what the law says, on the processes of for application, what they need to do, the offices that they need to visit. So these people from the community, they get to the community and explain it to them in their basic language, because not everyone knows English, not everyone knows like German or Portuguese or what. So if we have these community paralegals who explain to them on what the law says, because I remember in our community, we came up with the draft of a petition whereby it came from the community. They saw these things as an issue. So they went and petitioned the local MP to go to the Senate and to address the issues that the community face. Yeah.
And just to add on that, on how we can include marginalized group into the discussions on DPI. One thing as an organization that has really worked for us is we have very frequent community forums or engagements where we go to different areas within the community, mobilize members of the community, and actually sit them down and teach them about the different laws that pertain to whatever issue that in this case, DPI. And also we came up with the community champions. Okay, these are the community champions, or we usually like calling them community ambassadors. Yes, they act as a bridge between the paralegals, the community paralegals, and now the community itself. Now, we realize that working with community ambassadors or community champions, it is easier. It makes the community members more able to open up on the issues that they have. We have had cases where people have stayed for over like 10 years without identity cards, and they are not even in a hurry to get these identity cards. But from through the community ambassadors and the champions and the frequent education that we have, because apart from community forums, we also do radio shows. We have community radio stations that we work with. So weekly, we provide weekly updates, weekly education, weekly awareness raising, just to ensure that our community is well informed. We also conduct school programs, because apart from the adults, the children also need to understand what the laws that really govern them. They need to understand the importance of having documents, because we realized that most members of these communities who have grown and are old and they don't have these documents are not in a hurry to get these documents. And so through the children, when the children are well empowered, then at least we have some kind of sustainability, because this information will grow with them. So those are some of the strategies that have worked for us, and we are having a community movement at the moment. And it is this movement that we built from the community that actually helped us push for the Huduma number case, and as is also helping us at the moment to achieve whatever we want with the Maisha number case, because through the Huduma case and the cases and the litigations that we've had, vetting committees were banned in Kenya. So right now, no community goes through vetting, even though their documents still go through some kind of scrutiny. But we were able to push, and there's no more vetting in Kenya. So it is always the community. Try build a movement, try frequent education with the community, and you'll get the results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to have final questions and comments, and then a final answer from the panel.
Okay, my question is, are there really legitimate reasons for state actors, as we've seen most of here state actors, to actually demand biometric IDs? And what is the test to gauge that legitimacy? Just an open question.
Hi, thank you. I think my question is also aligned to his question. So it's my first time, when I came, I thought we were going to understand the whole issue behind it, but it's okay, I caught up. So I wanted to find out from, sorry, I didn't get his name, because when he responded on the issue of what the UK is doing now, so when I read is the argument that is being used is there is pressure to have these IDs so that they can curb the migration issue. And I think it's a different dimension that now looks at the challenges that they have that they are trying to argue is the best way. But I also have a similar question on the need for these specific IDs. I think it has pros and cons. I can tell you an example in my country. I'm from Namibia. We have the same issue where you have certain marginalized communities or so that are not documented, especially in the northern area where you have borders and you have the same people across the border. So if you drive around Windhoek, you find there are small kids, I don't know if you've seen them, and they look like the nomadic groups, but they are. But those ones, they come from Angola. And across the border, you find the same people. So they've come now from the north all the way down, and we have a social grant system that helps like children that are orphans and so on. So they don't have documents. So they can't benefit from that. And what happens to them, the ones that are in town now are just probably roaming around and getting help. But you find others that have now ventured into the rural areas or into farm areas where I think they are being exploited because they render services. Sometimes they are paid, other times they are not paid. So for me, there might be benefits, but my biggest fear is with what is done with this data that becomes digital in terms of who I am and what I do. That for me aligns to that question. I just wanted to understand and what is, and also the importance. You are asking us about all the players that should be involved. I think it depends from country to country. Some countries have dynamic civil society. In Namibia, maybe we have, and I don't know, but I think the way our country was, so we were regarded as a higher middle income country. So funding for, NGOs and so on I don't think there is a lot in the country. And also the people, our nature is, I don't know, we don't even go on strike regularly. You find 5 people, they are going on a strike. But in other countries, there's a big movement. So we have those different dynamics, but it doesn't take away that we need it. We need civil society to speak up. But I don't think we have it here. I have not experienced it. And I'm trying to figure out how do you then convince the importance of this participation from that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. So someone here mentioned how civil society is approaching UNDP or talking with the World Bank. I think there are different ways to approach this, but my comment / my question is how much, when we ask these questions, we have in our mind and we put in our eyes the lens of the neoliberal system. At the end of the day, the World Bank is a neoliberal tool that has benefits and is trying to apply its neoliberal strategy on countries of the so-called global south. And this strategy is very much important for us to understand how it is being applied if we want to if we are in a fight, we better know our enemy, or we better know the other stakeholders. So this is the first comment. Two, another lens that is equally important is the for-profit companies. For example, the M-Pesa in Kenya was a startup. It started as a startup, then the government bought it. And then another stakeholder bought it. And these startups, let's make mobile wallets, etc., are becoming an important influential factor on governments. And data nowadays is the most important currency. It's the new oil of our world. So it is also very important to understand this actor not being only influential, but as a driving actor. So how much as civil society or also as researchers are putting these lenses on when we are exploring the question of digital ID or DPI. And lastly, I don't think there is more funding going to digital ID. As a matter of fact, in the funding landscape, this is one of the issue areas that have foreseen, especially in the last 2 years, remarkable drop in terms of the size of support going for digital ID. And this has been driven by institutions like the UNDP and the World Bank. And when we're talking about UNDP, it is also important to mention, and colleagues from Nubian Rights Forum can correct this, that back in 2 years ago, maybe, the UNDP intentionally started to work less and have less visibility and provide less support to entities working on digital identity because they want to protect themselves and have better ties with the government. So also how we position our international actors is important to talk about and to acknowledge instead of just like swiping away. Thanks.
Thank you. And we'll start. Let's go, Tony, first.
Thanks. So I'd be really very interested to see those statistics that you've spoken of. We've not been able to find good data on funding levels, and if there's a funding drop, it'd be great to see that data. Thank you. And just briefly on the two questions about the legitimacy of biometric digital ID. So it's absolutely true that there are benefits to being able to verify your identity. In the UK, I can easily verify my identity. I can do it with my driving license, which has a chip in it. I can use my passport, which has a chip in it. But those are decentralized and ring-fenced silos, and I'm comfortable with that kind of data. Is it necessary for my government to impose compulsory biometric digital ID on every citizen? In my opinion, no. And I use a human rights framework to arrive at that position. I don't believe it's either legal or necessary or proportionate to the legitimate aim of me being able to verify my identity in order to access my rights and freedoms.
Just to add on that, I would say the government needs the biometric IDs, especially to give efficient service delivery. But when this is in play, there should also be strong frameworks to ensure that the data that's collected is utilized properly. That the principles of data collection are observed, purpose limitation, accuracy, data minimization, and they shouldn't be misused, basically. For instance, in Kenya, you are required to have, especially when accessing e-services, e-government services, you are required to have an ID. So they make it that way so that it's efficient for their service delivery. But on the other end, as Tonya said, it shouldn't be really compulsory. If it should be implemented, it should be done in a way that also eventually accommodates slowly, in a way that eventually accommodates the marginalized communities. So it should be something that's progressive. Yeah. And other benefits of it might be also maybe for security purposes when screening citizens, which is also equally important. And also, right now we have seen many countries now, as election approaches, they are now moving into biometric voter registration to avoid issues like double voting. So these are just some of the benefits, but also we also have to look at it on the other lens of what should be done so that the data subjects are not negatively impacted by it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe to just add something slight. When we talk about legitimate reasons, I don't think there shouldn't be any reasons, because even with the previous identification, they still had, there was still service provision. Systems and the different departments were still able to operate and provide documents and provide services to the citizens. And then something else that maybe that stood out with the digital ID in Kenya is we had new guidelines of operation when it came to application of identity cards. And in the new guidelines, the government had previously said that it was not compulsory for people to, enroll in the new identity, that is the Maisha number. But under the new guidelines, there were some of the provisions under the new guidelines. A parent would be allowed to, enroll for their child, but only for their child's school, only if they themselves have this digital ID. So in one hand, the government is saying it is not compulsory for someone to, enroll or maybe have the new ID. On the other hand, services are being denied for people who have decided that they don't have to enroll for these these services. So I don't think there is any reason why the government should be denying people enjoyment of such basic rights. And plus, just to mention, the Kenyan Constitution, under the Bill of Rights, provided you're a Kenyan, irrespective of whether your child has a birth certificate or not, you should be able to enjoy those services, provided, once again, before the effective date, you were in that country, you're considered a citizen, and you should be able to be enjoying those services. So there's not really reason should be happening, and there's no reason why it should be tied to services. Yeah.
So in terms of what becomes of our data, also in Kenya, we're asking who holds this data? Because I remember when the government was transitioning into the Huduma number, they collected a lot of data. But now when the courts nullified and state that the Huduma number issuance is unconstitutional, we don't know where the data is, because that is not what they are using currently. They are collecting new data. So what happens to the data that was collected during the Huduma case? Yeah, so we don't know who is the custodian of the data. Is it the international government? Is it private sectors? How can we get the access to those data? Or if maybe if you want your data to be deleted, who do you go to? Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm just going to have a few closing statements and just echoing the fact that in this conversation, there are not answers, but questions, and important questions that we have to be asking because of this lack of transparency and entering the room. There are some trends that we can see in how this is eventually being influenced, how this DPI conversation is being influenced. And one is global debt and sovereign debt. As we think about that relationship between international donors and governments in influencing what programs are being researched and implemented, and that's where you think about the scope and the spread of what digital public infrastructure promises in terms of healthcare and agriculture and tax collection. But also in terms of framing and words. So although digital IDs might be might be funded less, digital public infrastructure is being increasingly funded. Like in Gates, the Gates Foundation, for example, have even opened up a brand new section where they've funded people to focus specifically on digital public infrastructure. And it's because it's being framed as that silver bullet, but in this room and in this space, we know better that there are rights at stake. So continuously asking those questions and digging deeper will help kind of frame all the different avenues in which we can get to answers. And finally coming to that question of what do you do in contexts where it is so much more difficult to get that conversation going. I will not pretend to have the answer to that, and I don't think there is no easy answer, but it is that case-by-case situation, and hopefully also where there is a wider and more global conversation to support visibility to these issues, there can be more support. But ultimately, case by case, encourage you to keep asking those questions. There will always be a framing for why it's good, but it's also really important to frame why we need to keep pushing for a better solution. Thank you very much, everyone, for engaging with us. Yeah, if you have any more questions afterwards to any of the panelists, a big round of applause to yourselves. Yeah, to the people on the panel, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy lunch. Thanks for bearing with us.